I don't know what could have gotten into her. Probably jet lag. Heidelberg is considered one of the most beautiful cities in Germany. Heidelberg Palace, Karl Theodor Bridge, the Schloss Schweizingen, but I couldn't care less. The only sights I wanted to see were the looks of awe on the faces of my fellow students as I demonstrated my intellectual superiority. I was quickly learning not all Germans were the warm, fun-loving people I was led to believe. I wanted to give up and run away. But I had read enough comic books to know that heroes don't quit. Instead of running, I decided to stay and face the biggest challenge I've ever had, keeping my mouth shut. This turned out to be a pivotal moment in my life. By being open to people smarter than me, I grew as both a man and a scientist. Humble, brilliant. I really am the whole package. As much as I hated lying, I loved trains just a little bit more. As you can see, they did not warten. I returned home from Germany to a family which no longer cherished me. But I knew somewhere I was still valued, where I was still the center of attention, and most importantly, where I had my own bathroom. I didn't know his name or where he was from, but he was my new best friend. We had had our first fight, but at the end of the day, it really brought what's-his-name and I closer together. It took 14 hours and 211 lives, but I emerged victorious. I wish I could tell you we toasted my victory, but I fell asleep in the hallway. I never talked to my father about what I saw that day, but from then on, I added extra knocks so people could get their pants on. I've got a hot wife and a Nobel Prize. I turned out fine. Evan upgraded my computer, which made it smarter. There was one problem. The darn thing was smarter than me. I'd like to tell you I found something that night, but for once, you all might be ahead of me. I had a plan to avoid using the porta potty. I just had to get through the night until I could get back to my dorm in the morning. I lowered my overall liquid intake, skipped my pre-bed chamomile tea, and gave my bladder a stern talking to. My bladder did not listen. My body may have been weak, but my mind was strong. I just needed to think about this situation in a different way. Instead of a porta potty, it was a TARDIS. Instead of Sheldon, I was Doctor Who, whose urine was ready to travel through space and time. For those who aren't familiar, the TARDIS is bigger on the inside. This one, however, was smellier on the inside. I'm not proud of this, but that night, I relieved myself inside Billy Sparks' chicken coop. Until my wife, those hens were the only females I ever exposed myself to. I guess I could have left that part out. Oh well, I know what you're thinking. Wait for it. Told ya. I always believed my extraordinary life would be chronicled in numerous biographies. I even used to make up my own titles. My favorites were From Texas to Success, The Sheldon Cooper Journey, and Cooper for Kids, a preschool introduction to quantum gravity and superstrings. The point is, I knew my formative years would be well documented, which meant I needed to polish up some of my early academic credentials, especially East Texas Tech. For the record, I said my first word at 4 months. It was hypotenuse. My Meemaw made me realize that Dr. Linkletter and Dr. Sturgis's failure to learn string theory was my failure as a teacher. Perhaps the knuckles that really needed to be rapped were my own. For those of you who don't know what my mother is talking about, it's this. And this. And all these. Forcing your family to dress in matching outfits and be photographed in a field of fire ants and bees is a traditional Texas torture dating back to the Great Depression. Are they depressed because of financial ruin? No, it's the picture. And I never saw him again. My world had been rocked. But it was nice to know there were some things that would always stay the same. Like lunch with my old friend, Tam. I wasn't always as emotionally intelligent as I am today. For example, when my father died, I was flummoxed by all the different ways people expressed grief. My mother threw herself into religion. My Meemaw turned to a different kind of spirit. My brother tried to fill the vacuum created by my father's passing. And then there's all the friends and neighbors who expressed their grief with food. And of course, I thought about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and how upset I was over the death of Spock. And some people express their grief by lashing out. Eventually, I realized there was a better way to deal with grief. Avoid it completely. I wish I could tell you I said all those things. But I didn't. For a long time, I focused on my father's shortcomings. Now that I'm his age and have kids of my own, I realize he was just a person doing the best he could. And he did a lot. I didn't say it at his funeral, but I can say it now. I loved my father. I will miss him forever. It had been 27 days since my father's funeral, and everyone was still understandably out of sorts. Even as a child, I was always doing things to make other people happy. What a mischievous imp I was. I gazed lovingly at her. Eventually, my mom sold the house. My dad's chair was gone. My spot was gone. Where we ate together. But I can still remember it exactly the way it was the day I left for Caltech.